I'm scrolling through Tinder and I match with this middle-aged white woman. Okay, now here's the thing. I know I've been going to bat for white women like a lot recently in recent videos. I'm not a milkman, I promise. Okay, it's all pure coincidence. Being white is integral to the story, but I need you to know that wasn't why I was in there. Okay, I like the concept of older women because the thing about older women, like middle-aged women, when you're sleeping with them, they're eager. Okay, they're not taking it for granted. Like they know, they're like, man, like you remind them of their youth, especially when they've been married for a while. Like their husbands, they're just not doing it like you, okay? Because a lot of women get married young and then like they kind of just, they don't know about that real pipe, you know? Like they didn't know what they were missing, okay? But then once they sense they missed something and then they got like a taste of it, they're like, oh, I need more tastes. And that's where I come in. I need you to understand her being middle-aged was intriguing enough for me to put up with the fact that she was white. However, also, very white area that like I stay in. Okay, so there wasn't many like options. If I'm trying to get it wet, okay, and then there's a bunch of white women throwing it at me, who am I to say no? Okay, I just know like my limits and I know like the boundaries that I set. Basically, I'm messaging the woman and she's like, oh, you know, full disclosure, I have a husband. There's kind of this thing where like he likes to watch me like sleep with other men. And here's the thing about that. That's not the first time I've gotten that kind of proposition, and it hasn't been the last time either. Actually, I'm like, okay, why not? That seems fine. Here's the thing. Again, I love sleeping with women who have husbands because there's something about knowing the fact that they have a husband that makes like the event so much more enjoyable for me. The fact that you're in a whole relationship and you're not satisfied, so you're coming to me for the satisfaction, it's just the biggest ego boost in the world. Sometimes when I'm in it, I'm just thinking about the fact I'm like, oh, like, you got a husband, okay? And it just really gets me going, okay? I fiend for it. I pine for it. I've had friends though who like hate this about me, okay? It's really disgusting. Like every one time me and these young ladies were talking, right? They're my friends. I mentioned like the other night I slept with this girl who had a husband. They're like, what? Like, don't you feel bad? And I'm like, no, it's not my marriage. And the thing is, if she wouldn't do it with me, that means she would just do it with somebody else, okay? So me denying her isn't gonna stop anything. Like how people talk about like if you depose a dictator, like his family member will just come up and do the same thing. It's like, what's the point, you know? Yeah, they're like, oh, you know, don't you worry about karma? And I'm like, what do you mean karma? I'm not the one cheating. It's not my relationship. And they're like, oh, I hope when you get married it happens to you. And I'm like, hold on, okay? For one, that's a very like, you're supposed to be my friends and you're coming at me like this, crazy. But second of all, also they're not girls, okay? Because if you're a real girl's girl, you'd be like, oh, like she's cheating on her husband, you know, go. Because clearly he's doing something wrong, okay? He's not satisfying her. It's like some people don't get that. They don't get that like frame of logic, and that's why they'll never prosper in life. But me, I get it, okay? That's why I be sleeping with women who have husbands, okay? If anything, it gives me good karma, okay? It uplifts my spirit. Like spiritually, I feel so pure when I do it. But anyways, in this scenario, story I'm telling you about, this girl's husband's in on it, okay? So it's kind of like a different vibe. However, it's still a thing, you know? She still has a husband that, you know, he can't satisfy her by himself. So now that's where I come in. Anyway, she sends me her number. Then I text her number and she's like, oh, no, no, no. She sends me her husband's number and she's like, yeah, like my husband wants to like vet you, make sure you're not a weirdo. So I'm like, okay, fine. So then I text her husband and her husband's like, hey, I'm like, hey. And then like we go back and forth, like we talk a little bit. Like this is when I was playing football. So he's like, oh, you play football? So we talked about like football a little bit. He's like, you seem like a great guy. I'm like, thank you, sir. And he's like, please don't call me sir, okay? It's a bit weird, you know, considering that you're gonna bang my wife. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, yeah, like that's what's weird about this. Basically, after that, he gives me her number. I start texting her and she's like, oh, you know, my husband really liked you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I'm glad. Seems like a cool dude. And something about them is they both worked government jobs. So they really wanted to keep things under wraps. And I hope it's okay that I'm telling this story. Like, I pray they don't come for me. At the time, I'm also like, you know, I do want to keep this under wraps as well, considering I'm smashing this middle-aged dude's wife right in front of him. Anyways, you know, I'm texting the wife and like we're getting into it like a little bit. Nothing like, I'm not like a big like, you know, texter when it comes to talking about doing things in the bedroom. So I don't remember. I remember we didn't really get like too much into it, but she was like enjoying it. And then the next morning, her husband texted me and he was like, oh man, you really got her going last night. You know, like she slept with me. She was like vigorous or he said something like that, right? I'm like, hey man, no problem. I'm glad I could do that for you. And he's like, oh, you know, like definitely like we should talk a bit more and then look up into like setting a date. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool. He was telling me about his wife. He was like, yeah, you know, I don't know if you can tell, but she's pretty shy. So, you know, you can be more assertive when it comes to things. And the thing is, I'm shy when it comes to things like that. So I was like, you know, I don't know about being assertive, but like I hear what you're saying. You know who wasn't shy? Him, her husband, okay? He asked me for a meat picture right then and there. He's like, oh, like, you know, like, could I get a picture of it? And I'm like, nah, you know, I'm not really into like, you know, exchanging photos. And he was like, oh, but like, I just want her to like see it so she knows like what to prepare for. And I'm like, yeah, like I understand that, but like at the same time, like for one, I just met both of you. I just met these people and I met you online. And also, why are you asking me this? And like, she's not. Like, yeah, you could say she's shy, but at the same time, it's like from your phone, you're texting me, can I get a picture of your meat? And you're gonna show it to her and it's gonna be on your phone. Like, you see how that doesn't add up? He dropped it pretty fast, which tells me either it wasn't for her or he just like respects my boundaries. Cause I feel like if it was for her, he'd be like, bro, like, come on, like seriously, like it's just for her. Yeah, so I'm not picking up what he's laying. I'm not buying it. Also, race played a major role in proceedings, okay? Like, they're specifically looking for black men. They didn't say anything in the bio, but outside of it, that's when they told me. Because anytime someone comes to me with a proposal like this, my question is always like, how'd y'all start this? Like whose idea was it? And like, when did you figure out it was a thing? And mind you, again, I almost completely forgot about this. It was his idea. It's like, oh, we were married for a bit, and I brought it up to her years ago that was my fantasy, and she wasn't sure at first, but then she ended up getting into it, and then we really liked it. And he told me, he was like, the first time it happened, it was my coworker. I asked if he wanted to do it, and he said yeah, and it was a three-way. But then I realized I just like to watch. Like like to see her get the pleasure. Like I like looking at her as like my personal adult star, and I like seeing her get the pleasure. Like it really like gets me going. I'm like, man, like power to you. And here's the thing about people like that, okay? They get a lot of shame in society, but when I tell you, there's very few people I respect more than people who are able to see their partner get slept with and not at all be affected by it negatively, like mentally. I low-key envy that feeling, because it's like you can never be afraid of being cheated on if that's what you're into. It's like you'd find out you get cheated on and you're like, oh really? Like, why didn't you let me watch? Like, that's the kind of guy Kevin Gates is. Like, he made this video. He didn't make a video. He was being interviewed, and like somehow like cheating came up. He's like, oh, if my girl came home and said that like, she got something from somebody, I would have been like, where's the video so we can watch it together? That is peak like security, like in yourself, in your relationship. Like, I have no choice but to respect it. What people don't understand is like the concept of not wanting your partner to sleep with someone else is insecurity, okay? Like, you're afraid they're gonna enjoy it more. You're afraid they're gonna want someone else more. The thing is, there are socially acceptable insecurities to have, that being one of them. Like, if someone says like they don't want someone sleeping with their partner, no one's gonna look at you crazy, and they shouldn't. But I am saying, if you were truly secure, if you're like, oh man, like our love, like nothing is getting in the way of it whatsoever, you wouldn't have a problem with them sleeping with other people. If you don't have the stomach for it, it's because you're at least a tiny, teeny bit insecure, okay? And I'm not saying I'm not like a member of that team, okay? Like, I wouldn't, like, I don't think I could ever watch my girl sleep with somebody else. But I am saying that's like peak security, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm in a situation where, say I get into an argument with this dude after I slept with his wife, and I'm like, oh bro, I slept with your wife, and he would just be like, I know, I watched, I saw it. He wouldn't care. You guys gotta understand the power of not caring, okay? The fact that he doesn't care, nothing anybody could say to shame him would get to him whatsoever. It's like when people get mad at me on the internet and they're like, oh, you're a narcissist, you're gay. I don't care about those labels, okay? So it has no power. Even if someone thinks they're like completely like reading me, like, oh, you're a narcissist and this is how narcissists are, and because you're a narcissist, you're pathetic, blah, 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 blah. Since I don't care about being called a narcissist, it just doesn't do anything to me. So I'm like living in like my blissful ignorance. Meanwhile, people are thinking they're insulting me, okay? And that's what frustrates people more than anything. Imagine you're in an argument with someone, right? And you're trying to make them feel bad. You're like, oh, you're unattractive, you're broke, etc., etc., etc. And they're like, yeah, I am unattractive and broke. I don't care. And they're still happy. They have like a grin on their face. What do you do? Like, that would be so frustrating. Y'all underestimate the power of like people not being able to get to you. Okay. But anyways, back to the story. At some point in the conversation, I'm asking bro, I'm like, oh, so it's like only been black guys? And he's like, yeah, she just loves your guys' big meats. And I'm like, wow, like this is very stereotypical. The thing is, it wasn't just him who would say stuff like that. Like, she would like refer to like black men as like BBCs. And I'm like, whoa, like when she would talk about like her past conquests, like times they've done it before, she would have heard them as like BBC and not like men. So I'm like, okay, that's odd, but it doesn't really matter to me because, again, I'm just trying to sleep with her at this point. But also, I'm kind of putting off the whole situation because I want to see if I can get them to pay me. I want to see if I can get money out of that. I'm thinking, look, they're both on a government payroll, older white couple, why not, be my like sugar parents? I wouldn't mind that. It's like, that's not the kind of thing I'm going to ask for. Also, I kind of already like agreed to it a little bit without money. So it's like, how do I navigate this? I shelf it, right? And the thing is, throughout the next day, I'm texting like the husband, right? We're just, again, like just talking about stuff. He's like, oh, I want you to sleep with my wife. I'm like, yeah, that's gonna happen. But like, we're just like chatting about life stuff. And then like at night, his wife texts me and is like, oh, like, like he's really enjoying texting you, blah, 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 blah. At the time, I didn't realize that was weird, but like in hindsight, yeah, that was definitely an odd thing to say. Like, they were just collectively very into like texting me when they were sleeping together. And one time he was telling me, he was like, oh, I have to use like, I don't know if I can say the word on here. He was basically using a toy to like get in there. He was like, because I can't like reach myself. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, he was telling me he wasn't packing. And I'm like, what? Like, he didn't say it, but like obviously like that's what he was referencing. And I'm like, man, like, why would you say that? Here's the thing about me. I much rather would have had the conversation stay on topic to like, okay, I'm gonna sleep with the wife, like that's all we're gonna talk about. However, again, I'm not good at like just talking about bedroom athletics. So it's like, basically, we kind of just have to have these normal conversations, and I'm kind of like building bonds with these people. Like, I'm building a bond with this couple. He sees me as a friend and she sees me as like, I guess, a friend that like she's gonna sleep with. Low-key more than a friend, because one day the husband texts me, he's like, oh, she's like really into you, she likes you as a person, likes your personality, so she's gonna want you to like go all in. I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, oh, like, no protection, and like, could you like finish inside her? And I'm like, oh, like that's kind of an interesting thing. However, they had mentioned before that they hadn't done the whole like, she's sleeping with other men thing in like over a decade. I'm not really worried about those kinds of dangers, but I'm kind of just thinking, I'm like, bro, like, is your wife like telling you that like she's in love with me? I didn't say that, but I'm like, that kind of like seems like the vibe I'm getting. The thing is, he didn't have a problem with that. He's like, yo, like, you know, like she's your girlfriend for the night. She's your wife for the night. You know, I'm just there to watch. The thing is, he's saying this, but I'm just so worried. I'm like, bro, like, is he gonna like sneak some Johnson? Because again, he was the one who was very persistent, like, oh, you know, let's set up a date, let's set up a date, set up a date. Me and Shorty, very shy. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. You know what delayed it a lot for me? The wife sent me a picture of their children. Like like basically the husband, he built like a play set in the backyard, and like the children were playing on it. They had 3 kids, and I'm just like what is this? Like what are we doing here? Like, you have children and you're gonna book a hotel so I can sleep with you while your husband watches. And from the husband's perspective, you have children and you're gonna book a hotel room so I can sleep with your wife while you watch. Okay, and again, I'm kind of worried he's gonna sneak some Johnson in. It's crazy. They sent like pictures of recordings of them like doing it like the last time they did it, and I'm like, man, that's kind of, man, like y'all really in it to win it. And then I think at the time I was going through a lot with school and football, so like the texting, like we kind of just like stopped texting, and like there's no fallout, but just like, you know, it dwindled away. You know how that happens. And then I went through like this big like crisis with like football in school, and it became like in the news. And then like they reached out to me to see if I was okay. And I was like, oh, like thank you, I appreciate it, blah blah blah. And then we started talking again, and this time a lot more aggression from the wife. She was sending me images, a lot more vocal with her words, etc., etc. But she still was not as like forthcoming as her husband. Now he's texting me like, yo, like let's set a date, let's set a date. Have you talked to her? Have you set a date yet? I'm like, oh, like, you know, not yet, hasn't happened. And I think that time I was like out of town. He starts saying stuff like, oh, like, you know, you want to sleep with my wife, right? And I'm like, yep, like I definitely do. And he's like, oh yeah, you know, he's like, you're gonna finish inside her. I was like, I might, like that might happen. He's like, oh, and all over her face too. And I'm like, oh, like yeah, potentially. He starts texting me these very like detailed scenarios of like things like, oh, like, are you gonna do this to her? Like, are you gonna grab her here and like do this? And I'm like, okay, like I definitely can. Here's the thing, in my mind, I'm like, I'm sleeping with his wife. The least I can do is like, you know, like be polite towards this interaction. But then it gets to a point where I'm like, wait, am I like getting him off right now? Then he starts saying stuff like, oh yeah, like that's so hot. And I'm like, oh, like I think, are me and him like having like phone relations right now? Then he would do this thing where it's like when I would talk to her and me and her would like say anything, like, you know, talk about stuff in the bedroom, he'd be like, what'd you say to her? Like what? Like he would be asking me, and I'm like, bro, like you could low-key ask your wife, like if you're into this, like why do you want to hear it from me? Again, he's insisting like, yo, like we got to set a date, like we got to make this happen, like I need you inside my wife, like blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, like yeah. Now here's the thing, does that make me uncomfortable? Of course it does. However, I did really want to sleep with his wife, okay? So I'm like, yeah, like definitely we'll make it happen like once I get back in town. Then my phone literally breaks, and I did not have their contacts saved. And when I say my phone broke, like it literally wouldn't even turn on anymore. And could I have gotten the SIM card? I think I didn't even know how SIM cards worked back then. So basically, couldn't sleep with bro's wife, and I really wanted to. However, maybe it's a blessing in disguise, because who knows? Like again, what if he tried to sneak in some Johnson while I was in there? Again, he seemed to be very like aggressively like into me and his wife, like as a thing. But then remember, he was also like asking me for meat pictures, like he really wanted to see. And mind you, like I mentioned that one time he did it, but he did it again. Okay, again, it was less aggressive, but like he did it like more than once. He said something like, it was in passing, like he was like, man, if only like, you know, we knew what you were working with, so you know we could like prepare her accordingly. I'm like this dude low-key just wants to see my meat, and it's like I don't. Like he will, you know what I mean? Like when I'm sleeping with his wife. So I'm like, why does he want to pick up it? And it's like, I understand, like, yeah, you want her to be able to prepare for it, but like, just like prepare her the most. And then when I like get there, like, it's just going to be fine. So honestly, so not gonna lie, I think the whole preparation thing is BS. Like I think he literally just wanted to see my meat. But yeah, I was gonna do it that time. But then there was this other time where I didn't do it, different couple, where basically I matched, it was the same thing. Like I matched with a middle-aged woman on Tinder. And then like, you know, we were texting a bit, and she was very much, again, like this was a race thing, like with them, but like she was way too into it, okay? You know, because again, I asked, I'm like, you know, what made you, you know, realize that you were into this? And she said, oh, you know, I slept with a black guy once in college, and I had never felt just so like dirty and worthless in my life. And it was just so hot, and I loved it. And it's like, I love like just recreating that moment. I'm like, dirty, worthless. Like you're like sleeping with black men make you feel worthless? Like that's kind of like not good for my people. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I kind of don't want to contribute to that. The thing is, me, my archetype in the bedroom, I'd much rather be like a sweet, like tender lovemaker. Like that dude's wife, oh my gosh, she would have loved me, okay? So it's like, for you to be like, oh, like it needs to be like dirty and dirty. It's like, I don't, when I'm sleeping with someone, I don't like that level of separation. Ironically, like I have to have that like intimate relations with you first before I can just do that, you know, like just go into town. The first time I'm gonna have to like, you know, make you feel like you love me a bit, all right? Again, that dude's wife would have loved it. Why did I have to break my phone? Oh yeah, thing about them though, I forgot to say, they definitely wanted to call me the N-word, okay? And again, mind you, he said that like she was like too shy to ask, like if they could call me the N-word during proceedings. But I'm like, you know, he didn't say if they could, he said like if she could. but I feel like he would have like got in on it. You know what I mean? I just feel like it's a different vibe. You know, I'm sleeping with this woman. She calls me the N word, like dirty talk. But then it's like I'm sleeping with this dude's wife, and then he like calls me the N word. Like imagine I just turn, I look in the corner, I'm like, like that would be. It would be a messy situation. Anyways, yeah, that woman who I matched with on Tinder who was like, oh, it's gonna be so like dirty and like I feel worthless, blah blah blah. Which I forgot what her husband worked at the school and like he was like again like into watching. So I hope I didn't like blow anybody's cover by like giving that detail. The thing, she wasn't attractive enough for me to let her be that racist. So I was like, yeah, that's what happened. That's the story. And oh my gosh, like I'm so tired. Bro, these daily uploads, like they're fun and I love like the hustle of daily uploads, but I am so tired. I know I said today was gonna be a longer video, but like it has to be a shorter video because I'm so tired. I'm basically, my goal is, what time is it right now? I post at 3. It's 5 a.m. right now. I'm gonna sleep as much as I can, wake up at the middle of the day, hopefully record my longer video. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. Here's the thing. I wish there was a more satisfying ending for me. You know what I mean? Like I wish I slept with her. And the thing is, I know for a fact, like if I went and slept with her, there would have been more hijinks to tell you guys about. It was a completely a missed opportunity. Because again, mind you, I wanted to see if they could become like sugar parents. But like now it's like, I'll never know. So I'm editing this video, right? And someone said something that stuck out to me. They're like, oh, my last video, there was like a moral at the end of the story. And they're like, oh, maybe that's something you should implement. Here's the thing. My stories aren't always going to have morals. But like moral of the story, like, and again, like in all serious, like he was like talking about like a genuine moral. When you have an opportunity to do something that you want to do, strike. Okay, like don't hold back. Like genuinely, like this, yeah, it's a tee hee ha ha funny story, but I wanted to sleep with that man's wife, okay? But me like, pushing it off, being like I don't know. My phone ended up breaking and then I ended up missing the opportunity entirely. Something I want you to understand is that nothing in this world is make or break, okay? Like obviously I'm fine not sleeping with that guy's wife. However, there are things where it's like you missed the boat and it's unfortunate. And yeah, in this situation, obviously it's me talking about like sleeping with someone, but it could be more like, say you want to run a marathon, okay? But then like, you get into a like car accident, so then you can't run for a bit. Or, you want to sing and then like you lose your voice, just stuff like that. If there's something that you truly want to do, never be afraid to do it, okay? Because again, think about what's the worst that could happen. What, like I pull up, they actually like just rob me, the guy like beats me up, ties me up, and then throws me into the ocean. Bro, so what? In all seriousness, again, another example, like I was afraid to start YouTube, I was afraid to start posting on here, but now, I'm on here consistently uploading, things are looking good. But it's like, think about if I got rid of that fear a long time ago, where I could be. There's always gonna be a million reasons to not do something. Like back then I was like, oh man, like I don't know if I'm gonna have enough videos. I don't know what kind of stuff I want to talk about. Can I tell stories? Can I not tell stories? If I tell stories, will they be long enough? If I tell so many long stories, will I run out? And it's like, those fears are still there when I get on here every day. But now I'm posting through it and I'm seeing success. Doing what you want to do without fear will always be a plus. For a while, when I first started on TikTok, I was afraid to put my Instagram on my bio. Like I was afraid of like people seeing my Instagram. I have no idea why. You need to understand, like once you do things, you will very much like have less of a fear of doing things. Once you actually do things, like you're gonna realize like things like actually could never be that bad. Like say like, you're afraid of posting content because you're afraid you're gonna get hate comments. It's like you're gonna post your content and then you'll get like a hate comment. Someone's like, oh, like you're stupid, and you're gonna be like, wait, that's not that bad. You want something, you want to do something, strike. Okay, just go for it. You don't live forever. And the thing is, there's a lot of people who are gonna hear this and like be like, and then not at all do it. And the thing is, like that's like most people. I feel like everyone struggles with that in a sense. And I feel like maybe I'm like a little better than some people. And I've seen people where it's like they don't go after anything they want. And I'm like, yo, like you actually have to like strive for things if you want certain things to happen for you. Like if you genuinely want greatness for you, like if you like care about you and you care about future you, there are certain things that you should be doing to promote that. Not everyone can do that because we live in a society that conditions us to be scared of everything, afraid of everything. Again, another thing with me, I used to be horrified of my digital footprint, which I know it's funny now, right? I was horrified of like, oh my gosh, you say something online, it's there forever. Literally, when I was a kid in like middle school, I remember LeBron was playing against like the Heat were playing against the Pacers in like the Eastern Conference Finals or semis or something like that. And I was like, I wanted the Miami Heat to win. And I basically was like, oh yeah, like Paul George sucks. Like I just tweeted that and I was so anxious I deleted the tweet. I was always horrified to post anything on social media for the longest time until I went through a crisis, okay? Basically, I was almost no longer with us. Some people know the story, some people don't. I got really sick, almost lost my life, okay? And then once I got out the hospital, they were trying to kick me out of school. And it just put me in a situation where I was like, look, I went through my entire life trying to do the right thing, being scared of consequence. By the way, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be scared of certain consequences, because you absolutely should, but like the consequences that don't matter. Oh, I can't do this because people are going to say this. Like that stuff does not matter. It's like I had to take a look at myself, and it was like, Bryce, like I always was trying to do the right thing. I always was so worried, like, oh, I can't do this because people are going to say this, yada, yada, yada. And look where it got me. Almost losing my life and almost getting kicked out of school. And then that's when I posted this tweet explaining a bunch of stuff that happened between me and football, you know, and that long story, I'm not going to get into it right now. It's funny, I just looked at the tweet today because I mentioned it in the story, and like I looked at my DMs on like my old like Twitter account, and it's like I saw like a lot of people who were hating on me for like being like, oh, like why would you say this, like why would you do this, blah 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 blah. But then I saw a lot of support at the time. I think it was subconsciously, but like that support did mean a lot to me. Okay, and then I was going through what I was going through, you know. I ended up being able to stay at the school, but I wasn't on the football team anymore. This girl ended up convincing me to get TikTok, and I was like, you know what, you know, I'm gonna post some TikToks, and then eventually I'm gonna promote music, blah 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 blah. I was super nervous about posting on TikTok. I was nervous about like talking about stuff on there, but then I realized, I was like, bro, it doesn't matter. Like I almost lost my life. Like this stuff, like everything that I was afraid of before, it straight up doesn't matter because it led me to a place where I almost lost my life. Why'd I be so afraid like about all these consequences that don't matter? Like, ooh, what will people think of me? What will people say about me? When that's not the life that I want to live. So it's like people would say things like digital footprint, and it's like, I don't care. Like I'm happy. I'm happy posting what I post. The way I look at it, like if someone like sees my content, doesn't want to mess with me, you know, doesn't like me as a person, bro, that's not the kind of person I want to be around in general. Because again, like this is me. Like you got to accept this. I really hope you can translate this to your own life. But it's like, if you're ever in a situation where you're worried, like, oh man, like if I do this, like what's gonna happen, what's gonna happen, like don't be afraid of that. Being yourself and doing things that you truly want to do, as long as like obviously they're not like harming anybody else, is the most important thing about being alive. The thing is, obviously me saying this isn't going to erase all that from you, because I still struggle with anxiety to this day, okay? But it's like when you think about that and you try to remember that, you do better and better each day, and you take opportunities that you never would have taken before, and you realize how great it is that you took those opportunities. But when you do have those moments of anxiety, it's important to not bash yourself for being anxious. Don't try as much as you can to not like look in the past and be like, man, if I was doing this then, blah blah blah, oh, it's too late now that I'm doing blah 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 blah. It's not. You know how many times like I've had moments where I'm like, bro, like my life is over. It's too late. I'm too old. And it's like, I'm 22. But like sometimes I legitimately be thinking, I'm like, man, like this is the end of the road. Like this is how everything ends. And it's like, bruh, be a human being of action, okay? And take every opportunity given to you that you want. However, you're not going to take every opportunity. There are things that you're going to turn down. There are things that you're going to miss out on, but don't beat yourself up over that. It's the nature of the beast, okay? Something else will come along. There's always going to be something new, okay? You just have to see it. And you beating yourself up over things that you didn't see before and looking at the past and looking at that is going to stop you from seeing what you can see in the present that would change your future. It's not easy at all, but it's like, I love you, bro, and I want you to succeed. You know what I mean? So like, try. Again, you know, I missed out on this opportunity of sleeping with this man's wife. You know, wow, so sad. But maybe it gave me the opportunity to get involved with someone more attractive. Maybe if I would have slept with his wife, that would have been like such like a long, like standing like hookup, I would have missed out on somebody else. Something, you know, that kind of logic. To remind you what this is all about, okay? So yeah, basically I couldn't sleep with his wife, and it was such a bummer. And it's still a bummer to this day, and I can acknowledge that. However, I can't lose myself in it, right? And take every opportunity you want to take, but don't lose yourself in regrets, okay? Don't lose yourself in anything, but never your regrets. Nothing is make or break, okay? There's no such thing as an opportunity that you miss out on that completely ruins your life. That's just not how life works. Life is a revolving door of opportunities. There are opportunities that happen every day that you don't see. You don't want to miss the boat, because life does happen, and it can happen fast. But remember, this can always be the moment. This can always be the turning point, okay? No matter what happened previously, no matter what you feel like you missed out on, no matter what regrets you have, this can be the moment that you turn things around. And the thing is, if you say that today and then you mess up tomorrow, you miss opportunity tomorrow, you can say it the day after. It's never too late to be exactly who you want to be. Imagine I did like a fade to black right here, but no, I gotta do my like regular outro. You know what's crazy? Now I wish I could go back and do morals of the story for like every single story, because every story does have morals. Every story in life, I feel like, has morals. Like it's just like you just gotta find out what they are. I feel like it would have been very easy to be like, oh man, couldn't sleep with this dude's wife, whatever, and then just move on. But then I saw that person's comment. If you're watching this, thanks, bro. And I was like, what is there here? Like what did I take away from this story? And it was the fact that I got to start jumping on opportunities, and also not beat myself up for previously having not jumped on opportunities. That's crazy. I did not expect to say that much. I hope you didn't mind. Like I was kind of like yapping, but like it was important stuff, you know? Anyways, I recorded all this like after, like while I was editing. So like I'm gonna jump back in with like what I was talking about before. So it's gonna seem like I like didn't say any of this, but like trust me, I did say it. You were here, you did witness it, okay? But again, didn't sleep with the guy's wife, even though he really wanted me to. But again, who knows? He might have tried to like stick something inside of me. But yeah, but crazy thing about this story, I think I met them like when I was like 19 and they were in their 40s. So crazy age gap, right? I didn't think about that till years later. I don't even think I was 19. I think I was 18. Oh my goodness. Literally in their 40s. I'm 18. That's insane. But yeah, anyways, problematic age gap aside, I would have wanted to get in there. But basically, yeah, that's the video. And let me think, state of affairs. Yeah, still posting date. Bro, when I tell you I'm so tired though, like one of these days, I hope there's like, I hope I have an excuse to like take a break, or maybe I can like whip out like 2 videos in one sitting, because I've been trying to do that, but it's like after I record a video, I'm so tired. And it was like I was tired before I recorded this video, so it's like afterwards I just want to sleep right now. But I will say, okay, and also that's the other thing, I made it to 6K, and I know 6K was the milestone where it's like now I can finally like shave my face. I don't know why I'm thinking so much right now. Basically, I'm gonna go get trimmers tomorrow, so then hopefully for the next video I'm shaving. But like if I wake up earlier before like I feel like going to get trimmers, then I'm just gonna record the next video anyways. But regardless, thanks for the 6K subs, okay? You're coming in clutch. Love you all. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, everything I have to say. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I hope I'm not forgetting anything because I'm so tired. That would be very upsetting. If I forget something, I'll just mention in the next video. Like, it's fine. But yeah, you know, have a lovely night, evening, morning, whatever you're